John had chosen the day Emily, left for Harbor City to study as the date of his engagement to the love of his life. He told his fiancée, "Emily's too wild. Since you're gentle-natured, we'll keep her in Harbor City from now on, no coming back." Friends worried I'd rush back to the capital crying if I found out. But they didn't know I'd neither shed tears nor return. Before leaving, I'd accepted another marriage proposal. In 2 weeks, I'd be wed. Days before my wedding, I mailed every gift John had given me over the past decade back to the capital, including the ring I'd once treasured. From then on, our paths would diverge like rivers finding separate courses to the sea. My last confession to John ended in humiliation. The private lounge full of people fell deathly quiet when I spoke. Minutes passed before Sophia, sitting beside him, finally stood up to smooth things over. "Enough, John. You're embarrassing Emily. She's just a child." Someone in the corner snorted. "A 21-year-old child? Please." Laughter rippled through the room like wildfire. I stood my ground, vision blurring as I stared at John. "Emily. Must I spell it out crudely?" John flicked cigarette ash, rising to his full height. "I've rejected you clearly since you were 16. But you were furious when I dated that boy." My voice cracked. "Because as the Wilson family's adopted daughter, your mistakes reflect on us all." His words hit like winter sleet. "What about my 18th birthday kiss?" My throat tightened. Faint disgust flickered in his eyes. "You were drunk and making a scene." I ended the farce quickly. I laughed then, bitter laughter that dissolved into tears. "You dated 4 women, John. Every time I cried, you broke up with them. All these years, can you honestly say you never cared?" His arm slid around Sophia's waist. I hadn't met someone I truly loved until now. He pulled her close, their bodies aligning perfectly. "Listen well, I love Sophia. We're getting married. Your usual tricks won't work this time." Sophia gazed up adoringly. "John." Their lips met in a kiss that erased the world around them, passionate, intense, utterly oblivious to anyone else around them. Yet all I could see was that birthday kiss years ago, equally fervent and lingering, the delusion that sustained me for 4 years crumbling like ash. As they parted breathlessly, I finally understood I'd been mistaking pity for passion all along. That night, John moved out of the Wilson family estate for good. I moved in with Sophia. On the day John moved out, I was busy with my thesis defense at school. Choosing such timing was clearly meant to prevent me from making a scene. But this time, unlike before, I didn't immediately run crying to John. After a faint ripple of emotion in my heart, I simply shook my head and pushed it all aside. That evening, I attended a graduation dinner with close classmates. While going to the restroom, I encountered Sophia. "Emily, John's here too. Want to join us?" I declined. "I'm with classmates." Sophia suddenly teared up. "Emily, the Wilsons never approved of someone from my background. Could you please stop badmouthing me to them?" Shocked, I replied, "Ms. Miller, I've never mentioned you to any adults." Her lips trembled. "I know you've loved John for years. I understand it's hard accepting us being together. But Emily," her voice turned pleading, "shouldn't we women show each other kindness?" Inheriting my mother's blunt temperament, I snapped, "Stop lying about." Before I could finish, Sophia collapsed to her knees. "Please, Emily." Alarmed, I reached to help her up. My fingers barely grazed her sleeve when she fell backward dramatically. "What are you doing?" John's furious voice rang out as he shoved me violently. My knees smashed against the wall's sharp edge, blood immediately streaming down my shins. "John, don't blame her." Sophia's weak protest came through tears. "Enough. I've seen her tricks since childhood." John scooped Sophia up. glaring at me with murderous rage. Apologize. Now. Blood pooled around my feet as I laughed bitterly. I'm sorry. His jaw tightened. Not good enough. Straightening painfully. I bowed deeply. Satisfied? Sophia's lips twitched in triumph before she sniffled. Let it go, John. This is too much. The twin trails of blood kept dripping as John carried her away without glancing back, leaving me standing in the hallway clutching my ruined stockings. John's heart ached instantly. Emily, he said. I told you Sophia is different. Hurting her won't make me break up with her. It'll only make me cherish her more and resent you. He scooped Sophia into his arms and walked away. I stood frozen for what felt like eternity. The cuts on my knees throbbed painfully, yet my chest felt hollow and weightless. In that moment, I knew every shred of obsession and unrequited affection had disintegrated into dust, leaving nothing behind. That night, Sophia posted 3 consecutive social media updates. Someone from our circle screenshotted them all and sent them to me, particularly highlighting John's comments. They wanted to watch me make a spectacle of myself like before. In the past, I'd rush to John in hysterics. He'd sigh but eventually give in, feeding my delusion that he cared. But this time, I didn't react. Instead, I dialed a number from 7 days ago. Aunt Mary? It's Emily. About what you mentioned. I've decided. When I was 7, my parents died suddenly. Mr. Wilson, who'd been close with my father, took me in. Aunt Mary had been my mother's childhood best friend before eloping with her lover and vanishing. By the time she settled in Hong Kong decades later, my parents were already gone. She wanted me to move there and fulfill an old pact between her and my mother, marrying into the Taylor family as her daughter-in-law. I'd hesitated last week, not wanting to hurt her feelings. But tonight, clarity struck. Unrequited love was foolish and pathetic. I refused to be the group's laughingstock anymore. 6 months ago, John had insisted I continue my education in Hong Kong. I'd thrown tantrums then, but now it seemed fortuitous, perhaps fate's design all along. Aunt Mary's laughter bubbled through the phone. Emily, your Michael has been waiting for your answer. He's ready to fly to Beijing and propose to you. My cheeks flushed inexplicably, yet her joy left me disoriented. 15 years of shared history. 7 years of longing. Turns out letting go completely only takes 7 days. The day John and Sophia got engaged was deliberately chosen for when I left for Harbor City. As a result, hardly anyone came to see me off. When I turned on my phone after landing, messages flooded in, most about John and Sophia's engagement. I chuckled dismissively, deleting and blocking every last contact involved. Before departing, I'd met with Michael, wanting no complications or attention. I'd kept things quiet. Michael respected my wishes. He proposed. We exchanged rings. And just like that, we were discreetly engaged. My bank account now held $100 million in betrothal gifts. My left middle finger bore a simple platinum band. As I approached the Wilson family car waiting to collect me, my phone rang. Emma's voice pierced through. Emily, my brother's engagement ceremony starts soon. Where are you? Just arrived in Harbor City. Come back immediately. There's still time. Why would I? My voice remained steady. Emma faltered. Have you lost your mind? If you don't make a scene now, John will really become hers. Why would I create drama over your brother's happy occasion? Emily? Emma's pitch sharpened. I moved to hang up when Sophia's saccharine voice replaced hers. Won't you bless our union? After all, John sees you as a little sister. As your future sister-in-law, I'd cherish your good wishes. My gaze found Michael standing by the car. His tall frame silhouetted against the sunset. Eyes warm. Sudden calm washed over me. Of course. May you two grow old together, permanently entwined. John stood smoking in the garden with friends, though his attention kept drifting toward Emma's group. He knew they'd been notifying Emily, same as countless times before. Whenever any woman appeared near him, these busybodies would alert Emily, prompting her tearful confrontations. He despised such theatrics, using them as convenient excuses to discard temporary companions. This time, he'd specifically chosen my travel date. Only the fortune-teller's insistence on a 6 p.m. auspicious hour complicated things, plenty of time for me to fly back after getting the news. John. A friend nudged. What if Emily storms in making trouble? He exhaled smoke. Confidence unwavering. Let her try. This ends today. His phone vibrated with my updated flight itinerary. The corner of his mouth lifted, right on schedule for my grand entrance. Right. You're engaged to someone else. She'd probably lose her mind over it. But she's been unusually quiet lately. You and Sophia have been all over each other. Yet she hasn't made a peep. If this were before, she'd have flooded the place with tears by now. The cigarette between John's fingers had accumulated a long column of ash. He forgot to flick it away. His mind stuck on his friend's last remarks. Emily had indeed been eerily quiet these days, unnervingly so. But knowing her, this wasn't her nature. He'd rejected her countless times growing up. Yet she'd always bounced back fiercer, never retreating. Now that she was older, maybe she'd learned some composure. John suddenly thought of something and scoffed, crushing his cigarette. Just wait. She's not the type to stay docile. John. You think Emily will cause trouble? Someone asked. He didn't answer, but certainty settled in his chest. That girl had always been a hopeless romantic. As a teen, she devoured sappy novels and tried every absurd trick in the book on him. This recent calm? Just a strategic retreat. He'd bet anything she'd show up by the engagement ceremony at the latest. Tell security to stay alert. John checked his watch. No outsiders causing disruptions. Before the words fully left his mouth, Emma came rushing over, her gown bunched in her hands. Cousin! Emily's here, her car just pulled up. A flicker of inexplicable satisfaction sparked in John's chest before his expression darkened. Ridiculous. She just never learns. Brother. What do we do? If she makes a scene, the Wilson family will be humiliated. John strode toward the entrance, face icy. I'll handle whatever stunt she's pulling. The group followed, but as they exited the garden, Sophia's soft voice stopped him. John. She wore a stunning silk gown, her hair intricately braided, makeup subtle. The ceremony wasn't for hours yet. Though anxious, her poise held. Why are you here? John paused, studying her. Sophia's delicate beauty, the kind that made men protective, contrasted sharply with Emily's mischief. Her timid demeanor, shaped by a difficult upbringing, showed in her whispery speech. He'd met her during, John was currently dealing with Emily's commotion. Feeling a headache coming on, he found himself easily drawn to Sophia's gentle and composed demeanor. Unlike previous women who'd thrown themselves at him, his relationship with Sophia had begun with him rescuing her from danger. That classic male hero complex made his feelings for her entirely different from the casual flings he had before. I heard Emily's back. Sophia's eyes welled up before she could finish her sentence. I'm worried. She bit her lip, lowering her gaze. John. What if we can't go through with the engagement ceremony today? Don't be ridiculous. John placed his hands on Sophia's shoulders, giving them a reassuring squeeze. I'll handle this. Sophia clutched at his sleeve desperately. I'm scared, she whispered, tears spilling down her cheeks. The petite woman trembled like fragile porcelain about to shatter. Relax. Sophia. Emma interjected with barely concealed satisfaction. My brother can't stand Emily. She's that spoiled brat who throws tantrums over every little thing. He's completely fed up with her. The younger Wilson sister had despised Emily ever since the adopted girl joined their family, watching bitterly as her parents prioritized the newcomer under the guise of maintaining family reputation. These past years, Emma had secretly delighted in every humiliation Emily suffered. The recent development of Emily being exiled to study in Hong Kong thrilled her. The Wilsons had even shipped all Emily's belongings weeks early. Clearly wanting to be rid of her, Emma would support anyone becoming her sister-in-law except that insufferable orphan. John suddenly turned to his sister. "I thought you two were close." "Close?" Emma scoffed. "I've always hated her. All that fake friendship was just to manipulate her into making a fool of herself." Reveling in her newfound freedom to speak openly, she missed the darkening of John's expression. "Let me deal with Emily today. I'll have security throw her out." Imagine crashing an ex's engagement. Her dead parents would be spinning in their graves. The sharp crack of John's palm meeting Emma's cheek froze everyone in shock, especially Sophia. She furrowed her brows, her gaze darkening as she looked into John's eyes. "Brother, why did you hit me?" Emma immediately covered her face and burst into loud sobs. "Emily is still my sister in name. You used to call her that too." John's expression turned stormy. "She's been part of the Wilson family for over a decade. Emma, do you really think humiliating her brings any honor to our family? Why are you defending her?" Emma cried with trembling lips. "You've always hated her." The words hung heavily in the air. John stood motionless, the accusation echoing in his mind. Did he truly hate Emily? He remembered when she'd first arrived at the Wilson estate how she'd clung to him like a shadow. When 12-year-old Emily scraped her knees at the park, it was John who wiped her tears and carried her home piggyback. When bullies mocked her accent at middle school, he'd skipped football practice to confront them. Even her first period had become his responsibility. Teenage John awkwardly purchasing sanitary pads while Emily hid in the pharmacy aisle. She'd worshipped him with fierce devotion that once warmed his heart. But somewhere between her 16th birthday and college applications, that admiration curdled into obsession. Emily grew possessive, throwing tantrums whenever he spoke to female classmates. She'd slash the tires of girls who texted him, scream for hours if he missed family dinners. The final straw came when she burned Michael's car after seeing them study together. John still heard her desperate pleas echoing through the mansion's marble halls as he arranged her exile to Hong Kong University. "You'll thank me when you mature," he'd told her, shaking form at the airport, ignoring the way her tears mirrored the rain on the terminal windows. Yet here she was, years later, turning his engagement party into chaos within hours of returning. John gently pulled Sophia closer, thumb brushing tear tracks from her cheeks. "Go freshen up. I'll handle Emily and meet you at the ballroom." His fiancée's perfume lingered as he added firmly, "The ceremony will start on time. I promise." Sophia watched his retreating figure blend with the hallway's gold-leafed shadows, her freshly manicured nails digging crescent moons into her palms. Across the estate, champagne flutes lay shattered like the family peace, their amber droplets reflecting the chandelier's cold glitter. For some reason, I couldn't shake the lingering unease in my heart. Emma's earlier questioning had been valid. Everyone knew how much John supposedly detested Emily. Yet he'd slapped his own cousin over a few words from Emma. Did he truly hate Emily? Or was there something different about her in the depths of his heart? When John reached the estate gates, Emily wasn't there, but her pink Mini sat parked quietly nearby. Standing beside it was her best friend Lily. John's steps faltered, his heart giving an odd tug as though weighted. Then he remembered Emily had gifted this car to Lily before leaving Beijing. Lily approached immediately, a red envelope in hand. Her expression remained neutral as she stated, "Emily asked me to give this wedding gift to you and Sophia." John didn't accept it. Lily frowned slightly. "There's another matter. Emily tried calling you several times before leaving, but you never answered. She needs the antique brooch back, the one she gave you for your birthday. It was her mother's love token to her father." A mocking smile touched Lily's lips. Emily made it clear this brooch is meant for her future husband. It's inappropriate for you to keep it now. Mr. Wilson. I'll take it to her in Hong Kong. John's gaze dropped to the sapphire brooch gleaming against his lapel. He'd inexplicably chosen it while dressing that morning, though it clashed with his formal wear. Now its brilliance seemed harsh and accusatory. Future husband? The thought of Emily marrying someone else, sharing a bed, a life, stirred visceral discomfort. She'd always been so devoted to him. How could there be room for another man? Clever girl. Sending Lily instead of coming herself. This maneuver had successfully unsettled him. Mr. Wilson? Tell Emily gifts aren't meant to be reclaimed, John said coldly. If she wants it back, she'll have to ask me personally. He turned sharply, the brooch's prongs digging into his chest like tiny anchors. Lily Green urgently called out to stop him. Mr. Wilson, wait. Let me get Emily to speak with you personally right now. What a joke. Emily was about to get married. How could such a meaningful brooch remain with another man? Emily had reminded her multiple times Lily must bring the brooch when attending the wedding so it could be pinned on the groom's lapel during the ceremony. For years, Lily had disliked John. But Emily had stubbornly clung to her feelings, foolishly letting herself be strung along for years before getting cast aside. The mere thought made Lily want to slap John across the face. Thank goodness Emily had finally come to her senses and found such an outstanding man. Lily genuinely rejoiced for her friend, determined to complete this mission successfully. When Lily's call came through, our car was already approaching the Taylor family estate. Lily? What's wrong? Emily. I confronted John about the brooch like you asked. He refused to hand it over, saying if you really want it, you should come get it yourself. I instinctively glanced at Michael sitting beside me, inexplicably feeling self-conscious. Though he appeared every inch the polished gentleman with his courteous manners, the commanding aura surrounding this man was impossible to ignore. Earlier during the drive, I'd heard him take a business call while fluently switching between English, French, and Cantonese, issuing directives with crisp efficiency. His natural authoritative presence made me feel like an awkward teenager by comparison. Normally, I wasn't the demure type. Yet around Michael, I somehow transformed into a prim young lady. Before I could respond to Lily, John's voice came through the phone. Emily, are you actually here for the brooch or just trying to sabotage things? If you're hoping to disrupt Sophia's engagement party, save your breath. If you want this trinket back, come retrieve it the same way you gave it to me. Something this valuable shouldn't pass through intermediaries. I took a steadying breath, forcing calm into my voice. Lily's my closest friend. Just give it to her. I'll take full responsibility. John chuckled darkly. How much clearer must I be? Emily? However you delivered it to me that night, use the same method to take it back. The line went dead. Humiliation and anger flooded my cheeks with heat. That damned brooch. I'd given it to him on my 18th birthday night when we were both drunk, on the 3rd floor of the Wilson family estate. In my bedroom. John pinned me against the door, kissing me with such intensity that my knees nearly buckled. His passion was palpable, yet he ultimately pulled away with visible restraint. As he turned to leave, I stopped him, pressing the brooch into his palm while explaining its significance. He accepted it silently, leading me to believe he acknowledged my feelings. These past years felt like a wretched nightmare. Now awake, I crave complete severance from the past. I expected John to gladly return the brooch like discarding trash, never anticipating his current stance. Only now do I realize youthful recklessness demands repayment. Had the brooch carried no symbolic weight, I'd have left it forgotten. But with my impending marriage to Michael, letting it remain with John feels unjust to Michael. Is everything all right? Michael's voice startled me. Meeting his dark, searching gaze, shame coiled in my chest. The The growing distance between us made confession impossible. Nothing. I finally shook my head, already planning to retrieve the brooch through Mr. Wilson's assistance if needed. Just minor matters at the Wilson residence. I forced lightness into my tone, smiling. I can handle it. Michael didn't press. Simply nodding. Remember, Emily, he said, the name rolling naturally off his tongue like Aunt Mary's affectionate calls. You can always come to me. You're my fiancé now. Though not the first time. Heat flooded my neck at the title. In 2 weeks, I'd become his wife. The bittersweet ache in my chest mingled with fragile threads of anticipation. I kept my eyes lowered, unable to meet his gaze. Emily glanced at him quickly before nodding with a soft hum. Michael didn't say anything more. The car arrived at the Taylor residence. When the door opened, he stepped out first before turning to help me down. I noticed the engagement ring on his middle finger. He hadn't taken it off since that day when he'd first put it on. As Michael assisted me from the vehicle, his hand lingered to naturally intertwine with mine. I initially felt self-conscious, but his warm, dry palm enveloping my fingers with steady strength unexpectedly calmed my nerves. This felt right. Aunt Mary saw us approaching hand in hand from across the lawn, her face immediately lighting up with joy. She rushed forward before we could reach the porch, embracing me tearfully. Emily, she choked out. You look exactly like your mother when she was your age. The floodgates opened as her familiar lavender scent triggered half-forgotten memories of my own mother's embrace. Michael stood watching our emotional reunion with an amused shake of his head, producing tissues for both of us. Aunt Mary, if people saw you two crying like this, they'd think Dad and I had committed some crime. Aunt Mary had married Michael's father at 40. Though childless herself, she devoted her life to raising her stepchildren as her own. Michael always treated her with utmost respect. Knowing this history made his acceptance of our sudden engagement more puzzling until Aunt Mary patted my cheek reassuringly. You'll understand everything in time, dear. Come home now, Emily, Aunt Mary said firmly. Still clutching my hand, I instinctively turned to Michael, finding him framed by lush greenery, his gaze holding tender warmth as he extended his other hand toward me. Let's go home, Emily. At 5:40 p.m. Sophia sat perfectly groomed in the parlor, her transformation complete. But John hadn't come down from the upstairs lounge yet. Sophia hesitated for a moment before approaching. The lounge door stood slightly ajar, hushed voices drifting through the gap. She crept closer. John, are we certain Emily won't make it back? If she were coming, she'd have been here by now. Even a rocket couldn't get her here at this point. A male voice Sophia didn't recognize pressed. John, I've wanted to ask, have you never had any feelings for Emily? You grew up together. She's beautiful, innocent, completely devoted to you. Sophia's breath caught. Silence stretched inside the room before John's deep baritone finally responded. Never did. Would you develop feelings for some naive kid? His scoff carried clearly through the doorway. He'd always maintained their 5-year age difference mattered. Emily had arrived at the Wilson estate as a wide-eyed second grader clutching a threadbare backpack. Even when she'd blossomed into a striking young woman with honeyed gold hair and summer sky eyes, John told himself she remained that same annoying child who'd followed him around their Connecticut estate. Yet against his will, his traitorous mind replayed her 18th birthday, champagne bubbles clinging to her laughter, moonlight catching the nervous flutter of her lashes as she'd stood on tiptoe to kiss him. The memory of her rosewater scent still made his collar feel too tight. He'd been bewitched that night, accepting that damned sapphire brooch now burning a hole in his dresser drawer. But Emily's stunning now, the other man insisted. Half my polo team's half in love with her. Remember last year's equestrian benefit? That Red Riding outfit when she won the junior championship? I still see her tossing her helmet off on the winner's platform. Sunlight through her hair like, enough. John's abrupt interruption startled Sophia. Of course he remembered. Emily had chattered nonstop for hours afterward, dragging him to the stables to show off her ribbon to that spoiled Arabian mare she still kept at the family ranch. Her breathless account of the dreamy British Viscount presenting her award had grated strangely, though she'd sworn she'd only glanced at the man once. The ghost of a smile tugged John's lips as he traced the crystal tumbler's rim. Sophia chose that moment to push the door open. John. Her pearl-encrusted gown shimmered like moonlit snow, an exact replica of the dress Mrs. Wilson had worn in her iconic engagement photos. The original Cinderella story of a middle-class art student rescued from muggers by a shipping heir still graced Society magazines decades later. John's chest tightened. This was why he'd softened toward Sophia after pulling her from that overturned limousine last winter, the way her quiet grace mirrored his mother's in those vintage portraits. Now, seeing Sophia framed in the doorway with the same soft updo and gardenia corsage, decades seemed to collapse. His resolve wavered as she stepped into the golden pool of lamplight, becoming the living embodiment of everything his parents' legendary romance represented. Even if he had never imagined taking Sophia all the way to engagement and marriage, today he would at least give her a perfect engagement ceremony. John stood up and extended his hand to Sophia. She smiled softly, lifting her hem as she walked toward him. "You were late coming downstairs. I was worried. Everything's fine now. Let's go." "What about Emily?" "It's handled." John's gaze brushed the sapphire brooch on his lapel. "Emily's always been wild. Since you're more gentle-natured. She'll stay in Harbor City indefinitely." Sophia's heart leapt with secret joy, though her face remained concerned. "But won't that seem unfair? She's used to being pampered. Being alone might, a little hardship will teach her maturity," John said curtly. Sophia didn't press further, obediently taking his arm as they descended the staircase. 6 o'clock. Her engagement ceremony would begin any moment. From this day forward, she'd never again endure shabby poverty. No more cramped tenements filled with questionable characters. No more sharing a single room with her 2 sisters. Her entire family would rise in social status through this union. John was heaven sent, her only chance to leap across social classes. She'd cling to him desperately. Never let go. My wedding to Michael was set for 2 weeks later. Though rushed, the Taylor family had meticulously prepared for their eldest son's marriage ceremony over many years. Despite the frenzy, arrangements progressed smoothly. Aunt Mary told me Michael had survived a grave childhood illness. After his recovery, the Taylors consulted a famous spiritual advisor who decreed he must marry during September of his 27th year to ensure lifelong health and prosperity. The family took such prophecies seriously. When Aunt Mary first mentioned the marriage proposal over the phone, the Taylors had already analyzed our astrological compatibility. Our horoscopes aligned perfectly, a destined match. After accepting the engagement, I received countless precious gifts from the Taylor clan. The most meaningful was the pair of jade bracelets left by Michael's late mother. When Michael presented them, I felt both moved and guilty. The proper reciprocal gift would have been my father's brooch, still in John's possession. Perhaps sensing my melancholy, Michael led me to the gardens. "Emily, aren't you happy?" Michael asked with concern, his wristwatch glinting emerald green. Even my untrained eye recognized its astronomical value. I've always struggled with accepting kindness. For every ounce of affection shown, I feel compelled to return tenfold. Mentally cataloging potential gifts for Michael, each option seemed inadequate. His gentle gaze intensified my guilt until unexpectedly, tears spilled over. I hadn't cried when I finally let go of John. Not when leaving my 21-year Beijing life. Not even when John kept that brooch. Yet here I wept uncontrollably. The consummate gentleman floundered awkwardly, his monogrammed handkerchief smudging my makeup. "Michael, you're ruining my..." "Were you wearing makeup?" His earnest confusion cut me off. "I thought this was your natural radiance." My vanity preened despite myself. "How many girls have you chartered this routine with?" Must have had countless girlfriends. Does kindergarten count? My widened eyes demanded truth. One serious relationship at Cambridge. We parted amicably, realizing incompatibility. His pause stretched. There was someone else. The timing wasn't right. Understanding dawned. His heart belonged elsewhere. Explaining this arranged marriage. An unexpected pang twisted my chest. Quickly rationalized, better this way. Less guilt to bear. As we parted, Michael's parting words lingered. Emily, I want you to truly see me as your future husband. Your independence dazzles, but occasional reliance would comfort me. Something shifted within me then. I will, Michael. The jade bracelet warmed against my skin, its intricate carvings whispering of entwined destinies. Across the courtyard, sunlight caught Michael's profile as he consulted the family driver, his thoughtful expression mirroring the antique map collection in his study. I traced the watch's platinum links, remembering how his hands had trembled slightly while wiping my tears, the first crack in his polished composure. I first sent Michael a pair of cufflinks and a tie pin. They weren't exceptionally expensive, but I'd designed them myself on a creative whim, sketching every line with my own hands. This gift held purity. I'd originally crafted it without John in mind. I'd simply been missing my parents, channeling that longing into each pencil stroke. My wedding preparations were in full swing, though the Wilson family hadn't publicly announced the bride's identity. Being new to campus, I preferred keeping a low profile. There was also unfinished business between John and me. When he'd arranged for my transfer to Hong Kong University 6 months prior, he'd likely intended to permanently sever my ties to Beijing. The staff had packed nearly all my belongings for relocation, including every gift John had given me over the past decade. Among them sat an obscenely expensive pink diamond ring, presented on my 18th birthday. I'd once cherished it beyond reason, that circular promise never failing to lift my spirits during dark moments. But now I understood when affection isn't reciprocated, or given with ulterior motives. Even engagement contracts become as meaningless as thin air, let alone material possessions. As I boxed each memento from John, my heart remained disturbingly calm. When the jewelry case finally emptied, unexpected relief washed over me. I was sealing the shipment when my phone buzzed with urgent messages from the equestrian center. My mare had fallen ill, refusing feed and listlessly standing in her stall. The attached photos made my eyes burn instantly. Miss Emily, the stable manager wrote, we believe she's pining for you. Mr. Wilson happens to be here, shall I put him on? Before I could react, John's familiar baritone filled my ear. Emily, he chided. What happened to your vow when we bought this foal? The Wilson Children's Code? Of course I remembered. Every Wilson child raised their own foal, swearing lifelong responsibility. But he'd been the one who'd exiled me to Hong Kong half a year ago. Hadn't he? Emily Brown. John suddenly let out a cold laugh. When have you ever listened to anyone? Weren't you always causing trouble since childhood? Mom and Dad spoiled you rotten. Shed one tear and they'd cave instantly. Truth is, you never really cared about your pony either. His own heartbeat stuttered at those words. Startled by the subconscious accusation lingering beneath that Emily, she'd never truly cared about him either. Otherwise she wouldn't have actually moved to Seattle. Wouldn't have remained indifferent upon hearing about his engagement. Wouldn't have skipped the engagement party. Wouldn't have demanded back the brooch she'd gifted him. I'll visit when I can. Maybe even bring it to Seattle eventually. Are you planning to abandon New York permanently? John's voice sharpened with unexpected anger. I lowered my head, smiling faintly. Maybe. After all, I'd be building my life in Seattle now. Though he didn't need to know that detail. Emily, you're still as childish and stubborn as ever. His tone turned glacial. Don't come crying with regrets later. Regrets about what? Sophia and I are engaged. We're finalizing wedding dates. And? Don't play dumb. If I actually marry Sophia, you. My laughter came light and effortless. John. I'll give you both my heartfelt blessings. Truly. The line went silent. Without waiting for his response, I gently hung up. 16-year-old me had fallen recklessly for him, refusing ever since to call him brother like I used to. Nearly 6 years later, we'd finally reverted to our proper roles. No bitterness remained, only genuine well wishes after all our shared history. Later, I phoned Mr. Wilson. After exchanging pleasantries with him and Mrs. Wilson, I carefully broached the subject. Uncle Wilson, I caused so much unnecessary drama years ago with that brooch. Now that John's engaged, I'd like to apologize for my past immaturity. I think it's best to avoid unnecessary misunderstandings. John sighed over the phone. Emily, your uncle has always cared deeply for you. Truthfully, I've long wished you could have become part of our family. Aunt Mary's been crying whenever your name comes up these days. The ache in my chest came solely from their genuine affection. Uncle, feelings can't be forced. You've endured so much. Emily. Really. I'm fine now. I've made peace with everything. I'll retrieve that sapphire brooch for you. Your aunt and I are attending a wedding in Hong Kong next week. I'll personally return it then. After thanking him, I hung up. The specialty courier arrived to collect the carefully packaged gift box that would soon reach John's hands. When the Wilsons came to Hong Kong and the brooch changed ownership again, it would finally close that absurd chapter of youthful folly. From then on, our paths would diverge completely. John found himself drunk again at another social gathering. Stumbling out of the restroom, he overheard Lily's excited phone conversation. Oh my God. Babe. I'm flying to Hong Kong tomorrow. You promised I'm your only bridesmaid. Wait, you picked 7 groomsmen for me? Emily. You're the absolute best. The empty corridor seemed to amplify Lily's delighted shrieks. Long after she hung up, the name Emily kept echoing in his alcohol-fogged mind. He must be hallucinating, that's the only explanation for hearing that impossible name. Or perhaps the liquor had simply intensified his longing. Lurching forward suddenly, John cornered Lily. Who were you talking to? Lily jumped. John? What's wrong with you? His bloodshot eyes bored into hers. I heard Hong Kong. I heard Emily's name. The usually charming playboy's face contorted into something frightening. His laugh came out jagged and humorless. Don't tell me you're attending Emily's wedding. Though initially startled, Lily recovered quickly. How the tables have turned. All those years Lily had spent fuming and crying over Emily's heartaches now transformed into sweet vindication. The mighty heir of the Wilson family brought low at last. Hadn't he reveled in toying with people's affections? Taken perverse pleasure in watching lovers agonize over him? Well, he'd have ample opportunities to taste that bitter medicine himself soon enough. But Lily would never reveal the truth. Emily had sworn her to secrecy, and she'd rather die than let John go wreaking havoc in Hong Kong. This was her dearest friend's most sacred day. No way would she let that toxic jerk stain it with his presence. You misheard, Lily said coolly. I'm attending a wedding in Hong Kong with Emily. Just some old classmates getting married. John's brow furrowed. I never heard of Emily having close friends there. Her laughter rang sharp as broken crystal. John Wilson. When did you ever truly care about Emily? Did you ever once consider her feelings? Walk a mile in her shoes? The words hung like icicles. You never deserved her devotion. Not then. Not now. She left him standing there, the first faint twinges of something unfamiliar tightening his chest. By next morning, the Wilson mansion received an urgent delivery from Hong Kong. Michael had personally dispatched his family's private jet to ensure swift arrival. Meanwhile, halfway across the world, I stood trembling in my wedding gown during final rehearsals. Blissfully unaware, John's hands shook as he unsealed the parcels. The initial contents seemed foreign. Yet gradually, Memories crashed over him like storm waves, the first Hermes bag he'd given Emily. Pearl necklace gleaming like moonlit tears. Car keys to that cherry red convertible. A rainbow of gemstones spilled across velvet, culminating in the pink diamond ring box. His vision blurred. That long ago taunt echoed through time, when you marrying your child bride. John? Back when he'd been young and invincible. Swatting away admirers like bothersome flies. 18-year-old Emily Brown was as beautiful and delicate as a ripe peach. Radiating irresistible charm. When John took her out, countless envious glances followed them. He secretly reveled in his triumph, this stunning girl only had eyes for him. Back then, he fully intended to marry her. To be precise, he'd known since childhood that Emily would become his wife someday. Which was why he'd given her that pink diamond ring. But when did he start growing weary of Emily? When did the new flame overshadow the childhood sweetheart? Had his affection truly vanished? Or was it simply because he felt certain she'd never leave him? John clutched the ring until his knuckles turned white. Then suddenly burst into bitter, self-mocking tears. Meanwhile, I was occupied with my final wedding rehearsal, completely unaware that John had discovered the decade's worth of gifts, particularly that pink diamond ring I'd treasured. Nor did I know that during the rehearsal, when Michael first kissed me, John would slap Sophia across the face because of that same ring. How ironic. When Sophia framed me by fake falling to her knees that day, causing John to shove me until my knees bled. None of us could have foreseen this reversal. But now, both John and Sophia had become irrelevant ghosts from my past. When Mr. Wilson brought me the brooch, I shared my wedding news with the elder Wilsons. Their shock was palpable, the prestigious Taylor family wedding they'd come to attend in Hong Kong, shrouded in mystery with even the most relentless paparazzi failing to photograph the bride, turned out to be mine. Mrs. Wilson clung to my hands, tears spilling despite her efforts. Emily, I don't want to cry on your happy day, she choked out. But I can't help feeling this is all my fault. If I'd raised John better, if he hadn't made that first wrong step. The Wilsons were currently besieged by Sophia's entire family after John tried to end their relationship. The Millers, having nothing left to lose, had camped out at the Wilson estate, threatening to stay indefinitely. When the two of them were causing chaos, Sophia happened to discover she was pregnant. The Wilson family would never force a girl to terminate a pregnancy. Their wedding was practically inevitable. I buried my face in Mrs. Wilson's lap, tears welling up. Memories flooded back, those first nights at the Wilson household when I'd cry for my parents. And how she'd rock me to sleep. Those carefree years when they'd loved me like their own daughter. The tears finally fell. Emily, our John wasn't destined for happiness. Mrs. Wilson wiped my cheeks, her sigh carrying both regret and relief. The Taylors are renowned for their integrity, and Michael is the most exceptional young man in all of Hong Kong. You'll have a wonderful life, dear. I knew a gentleman like Michael would ensure my comfort even without romantic love. But nothing prepared me for the tidal wave of happiness that followed. As I fastened the sapphire brooch on Michael's lapel, he showed me a photograph from the equestrian championship years prior. There I stood clutching my trophy, beaming at some indistinct spot in the crowd, while beside me, Michael gazed at my radiant face with quiet intensity. He'd been the one presenting my championship medal that day. But back then, my entire world had revolved around John. I'd barely registered the handsome young man handing me the award, never imagining our paths would intertwine again. Laughing through tears, I traced our figures in the photo like a child discovering buried treasure. Michael embraced me from behind, his stubble grazing my neck. Remember when I mentioned having loved someone before? He touched the brooch. I promised myself I'd confess when you gave me this. Emily, it's always been you. In my girlhood romance novels, there'd been this deliciously contradictory term, wolf in sheep's clothing, meant to describe dangerously charming protagonists. I never thought to apply it to someone like Michael. On our wedding day, he looked every inch the distinguished gentleman, tall, immaculately tailored, exuding icy composure. But when night fell and the bespoke suit came off, my proper husband revealed his hidden ferocity. That night taught me how blistering endearments could scorch skin, how the Cantonese pat name baby could sound infinitely sweeter when whispered repeatedly against bare shoulders, how tears could flow from overwhelm and pleasure alike, how certain compromising positions could make me blush yet crave more. The first time I discovered the pleasures of intimacy, tasted joy, spent the entire night in reckless abandon without exhaustion. Then on my second day as a bride, I slept until noon. While I still lay soundly asleep in bed, Michael had already completed his morning jog, daily workout, enjoyed breakfast tea, read newspapers, listened to news broadcasts, and more. Several days after the wedding, the housekeeper finally told me with amusement, "Mrs. Taylor, you should have seen how Mr. Taylor couldn't stop smiling that day. In all my years working here, I've never seen him talk so much in one morning. He greeted everyone he saw, even my toddler grandson. Honestly, I think he would have carried a megaphone to announce to the whole world that he'd gotten married and adored his bride." Blushing furiously, I made an excuse to escape to the garden. From afar, I saw Michael's car entering the gates. He stepped out, handed his briefcase and coat to the staff, then immediately turned to look in my direction. "Michael!" I called out, waving excitedly from among the flower beds. My pony arrived safely in Harbor City yesterday. He had personally arranged the transportation. The thorough care during transit left my beloved horse completely unfazed when I visited yesterday. It had happily trotted circles around me. Michael's laughter mingled with mine as he pushed through lush greenery toward me. But before he could take more than a few steps, I was already running to meet him. He stopped, shaking his head in mock exasperation even as his arms opened wide. When I threw myself into his embrace, he held me tightly against his chest. Epilogue: John only learned about Emily's marriage on her wedding day. At first he refused to believe it, clinging to the absurd notion that this ceremony was just another of Emily's dramatic ploys, like his own engagement to Sophia. Surely it held no real significance. But when friends sent photos from the lavish ceremony, when he saw Emily in white satin standing beside her groom, when he noticed his own parents seated among honored guests, when Lily stood weeping happy tears as bridesmaid, her makeup smudged, when the distinguished groom kissed his radiant bride, when Emily cried tears of pure joy, John heard the deafening collapse of something fundamental within him. The world seemed to mute as friends' voices faded beneath the pounding in his ears. Emily's married. She's someone else's bride now. But since childhood, hadn't she always loved him? Since girlhood, hadn't her greatest dream been to become his bride? On her 18th birthday, she'd given him that meaningful brooch, their silent promise. Yet if he truly felt nothing for her, over the years, how could I have allowed her to keep causing mischief by my side? Though to be fair, it wasn't really mischief. If we're being honest, I'd been shamelessly using Emily all along. Back in our wild youth, as a wealthy playboy from a prominent family with looks and money to burn, I naturally attracted flocks of pretty girls throwing themselves at me. I basked in their admiration, their chasing, their catty rivalries and jealous pouting. Yet I always maintained crystal clarity: this was just fun. Nothing serious. Emily once claimed I'd broken up with 4 girlfriends because of her tantrums. What she never knew was that I'd never actually dated any of those girls. After a few days of flirtation, I'd grow bored and want out. But how could the dashing young heir of the Wilson family play the villain? That's where my childhood companion became the perfect tool. I'd have acquaintances subtly provoke Emily. She was so young then, all tender naivety, with Emma or others adding fuel to the fire. She'd come charging in like an angry kitten. I would pretend exasperation, forced to end things, while secretly delighting in her jealousy. There was something perversely charming about watching Emily cry messy tears over my flirtations, heartbreaking yet adorable. She'd always been easy to comfort. A few sweet words. Some trinket gift. Indulging her whimsical little requests. And she'd brighten instantly. I assumed this pattern would hold forever. That no matter how badly I messed up, Emily would always forgive me. Orphaned since childhood. She'd grown up in the Wilson household. Where else could she go? Even if she marries out. Our parents wouldn't approve. Everyone said. The entire family tacitly assumed we'd eventually wed. Even after my impulsive engagement to Sophia. But now Emily was married. She had a husband. A man sharing her bed. I had permanently forfeited my place by her side. On the day Emily returned home with her husband Michael, I had just had an explosive fight with Sophia. I'd moved out of our shared apartment, determined to sever ties completely. When friends sent that damning hotel corridor footage, the devastating truth hit me: my entire relationship with Sophia had been built on manipulation. The delicate wallflower I'd pitted was actually a venomous schemer. I couldn't bear replaying those memories. Couldn't stomach imagining Emily's humiliation that day. If I could time travel, I'd strangle my despicable former self with my bare hands. He had spent 15 years day and night with Emily. Why had he acted like a madman back then? Refusing to believe her? It all started from that exact moment when he completely lost Emily. Now, as Emily's husband led her into the living room by hand, John's eyes immediately caught the sapphire brooch pinned to the man's chest. 1,000 invisible needles pierced his heart. The relentless pain overwhelming and inescapable. Yet he maintained composure, silently trailing behind his parents while stealing glimpses of her newfound happiness. He didn't utter a word that entire evening. Didn't dare meet Emily's gaze more than necessary. His hands clenched so tightly on his knees that his nails nearly drew blood. Yet he felt nothing. Part of him marveled at his own facade, how he'd managed to maintain that calm smile until Emily prepared to leave. His facial muscles stiff from the strain. "John," Emily called out as she departed, using the term big brother just like when she'd first joined the Wilson family as a child. The finality in her eyes confirmed what he already knew: not a trace of romantic affection remained. Her parting words hung between them: "I hope you'll find happiness like mine someday." "Brother." He nodded, bitterness flooding his throat. That future was impossible now. But he couldn't tell her. After breaking up with Sophia, the Wilson family became embroiled in scandal. Sophia's pregnancy left his scholarly parents morally trapped. They couldn't demand abortion. Yet John refused to accept either the child or Sophia as his wife. He couldn't tolerate building a family on her calculated scheme, the staged heroic rescue. The fabricated echoes of his parents' love story. All part of her social climbing blueprint. When Sophia resisted termination, her family descended like vultures. John had never encountered such vulgar street tactics: shrieking matches, public humiliation, every dirty trick imaginable. The Wilsons, pillars of academic society, found themselves helpless against this onslaught. Unable to involve police without greater disgrace. They ultimately paid the extortionists to disappear. But those people had tasted blood and refused to let go. They were like leeches. Vampires. Parasites clinging to bone marrow, a never-ending nightmare. John grew exhausted dealing with Sophia's family circus. As Sophia's pregnancy became visibly apparent, he finally resolved to rip off the facade. When police cleared the Wilson estate of those rabble-rousers, Sophia seemed to realize her defeat was absolute. She demanded an exorbitant settlement. On confrontation day, John felt he was meeting Sophia for the first time, her beautiful face twisted into something grotesque with cold calculation and greed. Handing over the check, John nearly laughed at himself. Laughed at his own stupidity. His naivety. The familiar comforts of youth had faded like old photographs. A real man resists fresher blossoms. Nurtures his beloved into fuller bloom. Yet he'd been nothing but a consummate fool. Later, Emily's husband sent her pony to the port city. By the time John visited the stables, only his own horse remained, solitary in its stall. He saddled up and rode like the wind, lap after desperate lap until releasing the reins mid-gallop. The fall shattered his leg but spared his life. Watching his parents weep at his bedside, John finally matured through the agony. He'd rebuild properly from now on, he vowed silently while comforting them. Sophia aborted the child shortly before being convicted of extortion, joined in prison by her father and brother who'd led the harassment campaign. The remaining Miller clan scattered like roaches, content enough with their consolation prizes to abandon Sophia's fate. Only Sophia's mother, devastated by her golden boy's imprisonment, nearly cried herself blind while cursing her daughter's name. These fading inkblots of Beijing's past mattered little now. For Emily, a new canvas stretched before her, fresh and luminous, awaiting bold brushstrokes.